28th of October 2017, Unit 9 Pitch.
Jesper Lakunda.
Corey Lovett.
Zara Shabir.
David Ćvirković.
And this is our pitch for our first project of our second year, which we are going to name Death on the Doorstep.
So, for us, the synopsis, the detective is watching TV at home, like being all leisurely. Then he gets a call from his captain. The news first breaks out about a murder case, which is a case he's working on. Then his captain calls him and tells him about more further about the idea. Later on, he then arrives at the crime scene, which is the victim's house, and then the thing is, he knows more than he lets on. But the question is, who actually did the crime?
For me, my initial research covered the conventions of both the thriller and the detective genres. The thriller genre kind of more, the crime thriller rather, kind of more revolved around the criminal aspect rather than the detective aspect, which is what I wanted from the project. Then I looked at the different detectives in fiction. When I was looking at that, I found out there was 4 different types. There's the amateur detective like Nancy Drew. You've got the police detective, detectives like Sherlock Holmes. You've got the private eye. I can't think of one off the top of my head for that. And then you have the forensic specialist, i.e. Bones from the TV show Bones. I then looked into what a detective does in the real world, so I can sort of kind of link it to my show to make it seem more realistic. And I'll get into the how to make sugar glass and the fake arm later on because they have their own separate pages.
For my initial research, I've looked at the codes and conventions of film noir and the mystery genre as well, we're mostly about lighting because later on I'm going to talk about how that's like my role and responsibility. So like for example, like having like the near film noir / neo noir style lighting where the contrast is pretty high, but to kind of blend in with that, there's dark shadows, which is really common, especially due to give off that dark and mysterious eerie vibe. From my primary research, which is my question name, I kind of saw that many of my respondents wanted to have a detective with some humour maybe. So maybe we could incorporate that without it going off the serious topic. Like for example, having him basically the dark sense of humour, which is mentioned throughout the story, and it also gives off subtle hints of what could possibly happen next. For sound, I thought about having that surface music at the start, which is kind of just like to show that things are just normal. Then, as story continues, it speeds up. And it gets a little more terrifying, especially when it comes to like reconstructions and flashbacks. And the most important thing about this is the props. We should like keep them all realistic as possible, especially when, especially how they look, but also keep them a little bit simple as well. Like, because we're students and that's the kind of stuff, because we can't go beyond that, otherwise we end up creating flaws that aren't even there, and that shouldn't be there. And especially when they're interacted with, so there should be that, for example, ours are meant to be organic, so and they're meant to appear organic, so they're gonna when they attracted with, they're gonna be that with a bit of life into them. Maybe I also considered having the villain slightly more small than he actually looks. So he might like desperately try to cover the crime scene, as his fingerprints, or try to clean up the debris or anything that happened.
For my initial research, the first thing that I researched is how to make a fake meat cleaver prop. In my secondary research, I compared the fake one to how to make an actual real one, and I compared those two, and obviously the most suitable for me is the fake one, because obviously I'm not experienced as the guy from the YouTube that I saw. Also, I'll get onto that because obviously I've got my own separate slideshow for that, because I'm assigned to that. Also, what I've also went into codes and conventions on thriller. Even though that goes into the criminal side, I still took out some parts of it, and one part of that is they build up suspension, and that's what I want to do in my final edit as well. So the audience that I want to see my edit will be on the edge, and that. Also, what for the detective codes and conventions is that most detective movies have a sidekick. So in my primary research, I asked about if you want to see a sidekick with in the movie, and the majority of them said no. Actually, only 7 people said no in my questionnaire, which I already explained in my primary research. So yeah, and also we're going to use chroma key. So I have no experience of chroma key at all. I went to YouTube and other sites as well. I forgot off the top of my head, but yeah, and I went to watch one video on how to use chroma key effectively on Premiere Pro, and also I used another teacher to help me as well to use that effectively and use that in my post-production. So yeah. Yeah.
For my research, I first of all started to look at the codes and conventions of detective and mystery as they go along with each other. The thing is, with mystery I needed to isolate as it was between the aspect of crime and thriller. So for example, I need to isolate the usage of, for example, of a desert location compared to one like a big city, for example, New York. Sorry. I can't speak.
Have a look at board.
No, I don't want to look at No, I just can't get my words out. I always have this.
Just take your time.
For the detective codes and conventions,
Do you want to skip you for now?
Yeah, doing it. Come back.
Have a look at the board. Jump onto the fedora. So you started looking at fedoras.
for the fedora, I looked at the progress of making it. I won't go much into the detail of it as I have a separate slide for it. But first I looked into the aspect of making it, created a short instruction guide of putting the fedora together later on, because it was a method of more sort of play-like for children, and I wanted to have a professional look, so using fabric instead of like paint. So I have contacted and managed to get a short interview with one of a fashion designers, which explained to me the most maybe difficult parts, for example, in the progress of making the fedora, because I never had any experience of making the fedora. it was a really good, she provided me a really good starter, so instead of going the fabric outside, start from the inside bottom around the top, which makes the whole progress a lot easier and look more neat and fresh. Coming back to the detective genre, detective usually wears smart clothing that you wouldn't see anyone else wear throughout the movie. He stays usually very serious, but on occasion can have a moment of a dark humour, as he's really used to the job, which others might find disturbing. Because of the, let's say, personality of the detective, which goes into also crime, which the codes and conventions relate to the codes and conventions of crime, the villain needs to be on the same intelligence level as the detective, so the audience is engaged within the story as they try to figure out what's going on. Because if that wasn't the case, that wouldn't be the movie. It's just that there needs to be that clash of genius, as I found out in my research. Also, the crime needs to be significant first of all, or they can be, I don't want to say minor, because every crime is a problem, but it doesn't have to be a big thing, such as maybe stealing a really expensive jewelry diamond. It can be crimes that go throughout the years and the detective is just trying to catch the criminal. For my questionnaire, I tried a different method of distribution as from previous projects. Distributing my questionnaire by online social media wasn't the best. Didn't bring me the best results, as people found it more funny and just didn't take it seriously, or just completely ignored the questionnaire. So this time I decided to distribute it by hand in person to people that I know and would be interested in seeing a film in noir style. And unfortunately I didn't get a lot of results back, but it also was very useful, as for example I know that 33% of the responders never watched a noir film. So because of that, within the first few questions I told them there was a short paragraph stating, if you answered no to this question, please submit your questionnaire here, as I wouldn't want any fake information, or just people who didn't know what to say, so they just wrote the most random thing they could think of. Oh yeah, BBC certificate. For the BBC, after I finished my codes and conventions research, I looked into the BBFC rating certificate, and I figured out that that 15 and above would be the most suitable age rating for film, for production, from the current idea we all hold for our project. But I might come back later to it as ideas evolve and the certificate may go down or up depending on the situation.
Inspirations?
For the inspirations, wait, play the video first. So for the inspirations, I have chose movies such as Sin City. I chose it mainly for the cinematography and the usage of neo-noir, which came really popular from the series. Taken, or Taken, depends how you pronounce it, and Sherlock Holmes because of the serious aspect of it, but also they can have those few jokes within. Arkham series, and once again Sherlock Holmes, because we want to give this sort of sense that there is a sixth sense to the detective that he possesses, but not they will later find on what is really going on towards the ending.
There we go. For our target audience, it's fairly self-explanatory. We have a C-suite for as we're aiming for more students to kind of young adults, aiming for about 20 to 25. Non-gender specific, same for both audiences. But for the primary audience, it's going to be explorers and mainstreamers, because these are guys that want to find something new, but also people that enjoy what they watch, what's already out there. Although there aren't many detective films or things similar to that, there are still some, things like CSI, films like that. For the secondary audience, it's going to be B to D, as these are people that are a little older who have rooted themselves more firmly in what they're doing, so they're more successful in life. Age of 30 to 60, as the audience members would be around during the 80s and 90s, where the majority of detective films and TV shows were made. Again, non-gender specific, resigned because they're resigned to the fact that there aren't many anymore, at least not anywhere near the same caliber as the originals. And succeeders because these are people who have been successful in life, who have done all they need to be able to get to where they are now. The production mood board. Mud rock to create a cast of someone's arm. Silicone to paint on the inside of that cast. Then we water for the mud rock to make it pliable and to get it to set. The silicone would be painted on the inside of the arm, and when that sets, we'll take it out of the cast and paint it to look realistic, adding nail polish, a couple of scuffs and marks on the hands, so the victim has shown that she's been defending herself. Yeah, I pretty much. Is that how I did it?
The meat cleaver prop. Obviously, there's a video that I got in my secondary research that I showed you, not showed you, but I'm going to show you now, and the list of equipments that I'll show you.
A thin sheet of foam board, a thin plank of wood, brown and metallic silver paint, hot glue, various cutting instruments, paint brushes, a drill, various drill heads, a drill disc sander. This isn't required, but blue masking tape, plumber's epoxy, and some screws.
Yeah, so all the equipment that has been shown there, we have all the equipment from the design and technology department. So that's going to be a good positive for me, because I don't need to spend any money and invest more time into finding the products, where I can find the products and that, and also I can reinvest my time elsewhere, such as the scripts or other equipment as well, which my group members would need as well. So
The items required for making a fedora include templates which are downloadable from the World Wide Web. Okay.
14 seconds, that's all.
Is it?
It's just going to stop again.
Is there much space on the SD card?
It won't tell me that.
That is probably.
Yeah, that is
After
Keep
you've
going.
achieved your desired shape of the fedora, you can start applying paint on a shape. It will be the best if you applied 2 or 3 coats of paper mache, but waiting in between each coat to let the previous coat dry. After that is completed, you go into your final step, which depending if you're using paint or brush, which would be just to color the fedora as you would like it to be, and once again apply 2 or 3 coats of paint, waiting between each coat of paint to dry. And if you're using fabric, as previously mentioned, go from the inside of the fedora, going down and around to the top.
The other props we'll need are sugar glass vases, as they're going to be used as a weapon by the victim. Fake blood, as obviously the victim has been killed. Police tape to make it look like a crime scene, same for the forensic markers as well. An actual cigarette, as the detective is, as in most films, the detective is a smoker. And then a ski mask and gloves to protect the identity of the antagonist. For me, my role is the director, and I'm responsible for the storyboard, the script, and the character profiles. Although I will work with the camera operator for the shooting script.
The role I'm responsible for is lighting. I'm going to set it up based on the director's vision. So going back to my research, I could do get in film noir kind of style that I mentioned before, and especially low-key lighting to add to the seriousness and dark vibe of the film, and for the purpose to hide the villain. He'll be seen, but details will be hidden, especially to have the light and according to the lighting technique. So here's a lighting technique where there'll be one light right in front of the person, and the camera right across as well, and and the second light bouncing off the object, create like a shadow kind of effect. Sorry, please.
my role is, I've got 2 job roles. First, my job role is a camera operator and a sound technician. Obviously responsible for the camera and for the sound and all the equipment for the sound and the camera. My responsibilities are maintaining a variety of camera angles for the vision of the director. So whatever he says goes, practically like that. Obviously, not obviously, but operating different equipment for the camera. So like, if we want a tracking dolly, I can practically operate it in front of you right now if we've got the equipment. Also, I'm responsible for the shooting scripts. Obviously, me and the director will be in talks with that, and the shot list. I'm responsible for that as well, for different angles that I'm trying to vision, which will be in consideration to talk with the director. with the sound technician. My responsibility is to source out sounds for the internet and also produce my own sounds, which is more preferable. For example, like Foley sounds, I can make a leak, like I can buy a leak right now and what's snap it to make an illusion that burns up crunching for the villain who's trying to cut off the arm and such like that. Also, it will be my responsibility to check all the equipment such as the camera, the sound, to check if they're working properly, if they have full battery, the SD card's working, all the sound levels are to standard as well, because when we come back and all the raw footage is gone, all the sound levels are wonky, it will be in my head, to be honest. So yeah, that's what I'm responsible for.
As a producer, I am responsible for making sure that the views of... As a producer, I am responsible for the desired outcome of the product as the director wishes it to be, but also going around my crew and making sure everything is going as planned. I will be responsible for paperwork such as location release forms, or location recce, the schedule, which is already provided on the Ptch, risk assessment and talent release form.
For costumes, this is the part of our resources which I've split up into 3 different slides. For the costumes, the detective will be wearing a plain suit and the fedora that David's making. That's as a detective is normally in a nice suit. They're always looking their best. The victim will be in casual clothing because they're at home, they're alone, they don't think anything's going to happen to them, so they're in casual clothing. And then murderer, black hoodie, ski mask and gloves, all to protect their identity. For the cast and crew, oh, I didn't say it. The detective will be a male, about average build, height of about 5'11" to 6'2". Not really attractive, but that doesn't necessarily matter. As of yet, none of the characters are named besides the captain, which will be our very own Jesper Lukunga, as he's not going to be seen. There will only be a voice heard through the phone, so it's not as difficult to pinpoint who exactly that might be. Both the murderer and the detective will be both same height, same build, because they're going to be both one and the same character. Victim will be female, about average build again, 5'5" to 5'10", because we want her to be shorter than the murderer and the detective, to make her seem a little bit more, less powerful than the murderer might be. And locations, we need 2 locations. One will be a nice apartment, which we'll shoot for 1 day. This will be the home of the detective. And the other will be the townhouse, which will be the home of the victim, and this will also be the location of the crime, where it's also where we're going to be shooting the majority of our film.
So this is a simple schedule. For each week of our project, this will go more in depth, but this presents the basic idea of, within the first week, each of our crew members will focus on the individual tasks set in within the pre-production. On the second week, we'll go into our production, gather our equipment, all our cast and crew, and go to locations to shoot. I also included on the 11th of October a trip to a prop factory I thought that would be significant as even though we would already made the props by then, we could ask and make, I don't want to say interviews, but just ask quick questions such as maybe the best ways of using the props to have the maximum effect of their purpose. And on the third week on the third week we would have collected all our footage required to make our edit, go into our individual working desks and have our own final product.
Finally, the contingency plan.
Oh, for the contingency plan, we got a couple of contingency plans here. First one is like, if required actors do not show, we would have to maybe use our own, or get some more if there are others that are available, so it doesn't like affect the final product too much. Otherwise, it would reduce the quality immensely. And the second one is having spare equipment, for example, batteries, spare cameras, Zoom recorders, tripods, because this is standard procedure. Otherwise, if we don't have it, we end up with a disaster where a lot of our footage would be lost. And for the third, an occasion could be a problem where last minute we could have people who are letting us access the property. They would maybe say, no, sorry, you're not allowed anymore, so we need to, we are going to find other locations to film in. So we can still have continuity and the storyline. And for the fourth one, we're going to have backup props. And this depends on which are easy and made a lot quicker. So, for example, the meat cleaver and sugar plus balls are easily made and replaceable, since they don't take that long. So if the originals are damaged and misplaced, then we can get them back up and use them.
Although the sugar glass is a little bit more difficult to get a hold of, as we'll have to buy it from the internet rather than make it ourselves, so we will buy a spare just in case the first one breaks before we need it to. Any questions?
Right, thanks guys. I've got a question about, in the narrative, I'm clear on the fact that the detective's going to be at home, we're then going to see or hear the news report.
Hear a news report.
Here, so it's coming from a radio?
It's a TV, but the camera's facing the detective.
Right, okay, so not point of view, we're not
No.
going to see the TV, okay. And then he gets the call from his captain to go to the scene. He arrives at the scene, which is in the townhouse, and then I'm not sure what else is happening after that point.
That's I had that written down as well.
Yeah, after that point there's going to be a couple of different flashbacks, because as the detective is going through the house looking at certain things, for example the body, broken vase, broken lock for example, we will all keep them all. As the detective looks at each thing, there's going to be a flashback as to how that thing became how it is.
Okay, so what are the flashbacks?
For the corpse, which would just be an outline with a stump where the arm should be. He'll like crouch down looking at it, then he'll look up and see the two getting into an altercation, the murderer and the victim. The vase is going to be thrown at the attacker, but misses, and then he goes through all out and succeeds.
So
with
you know
his plan.
specifically what every single flashback is for every...
Not every single one, but that's going to be developed more over the next week.
Okay, so once that is developed, how does it all come together?
Like where's the big reveal? So your detective is your killer.
Mm-hmm.
How do we find that out?
At the end of the film, he'll open the door
Of the
Takes a-
apartment?
of a fridge,
His
So
own
his
fridge
own
or in
fridge.
the
of,
town?
of his own
Yeah.
fridge.
So
in
we're
his
going
own
to see him
home.
leave the apartment now
Yep.
and go
And
back
then
to his
go
own
back
house.
to his own home. When he's at his own home, he opens the fridge, takes something out, again not planned,
Confirmed, yeah.
and then you see an arm on a plate in the fridge. He closes the door and then cuts black.
Which could either suggest some audience might take that as in he's going to be the next victim, or your implication is that he's in fact the murderer.
Mm.
Okay, that answers my questions.
Is he like cannibal? Like why is it in the fridge? Is he a cannibal? Like
Could be. It's not really
I
planned.
think sometimes you need to think about the little details
Yeah.
because your audience are going to ask those kind of questions. So I think you guys really need to just get your idea a little bit more clear.
And that's important because if the way you describe the detective, like that Harvey Specter versus Dexter,
Yeah.
I mean, from Dexter, we'd expect it to be in the fridge, maybe, but then he's a bit more clinical. So that maybe where that item is really important. So you know how Dexter has like that nice wooden tray where he keeps all the blood swatches. If he's intelligent, then maybe it wouldn't be in the fridge. Like, so maybe that element actually is bigger than you probably think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which you're going to develop in script writing, but that's really key. So maybe a focus group would be important then when you're doing your script writing.
And as well, if you're going to spend all that time making the prop arm for us to just see it for half of a second in the fridge, like it seems like a little bit of a waste. Like, could there be another way you could incorporate that? It's the fact that she's had her arm chopped off. It's like quite a big part of your film,
Mm.
and the focus should be the props. So maybe you could try and incorporate it a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll try to develop on that then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I think
it's
that's
key.
important, yeah.
I have a question about because obviously the key thing is the neo-noir, black and white. Now, are you shooting in black and white, or are you gonna post-produce in black and white?
It really depends. I forgot to mention it in my research. I forgot to mention it in my initial research. I researched into the crazy conventions of noir films, and it stated that there are specific filters that they used for gaining the effect, and I wanted to go and ask if we had such equipment, as it would also be cheaper to make the whole shooting with those filters. But it's not a possibility. We will be using it. We'll be adding those effects in post-production.
Okay, so I know you didn't really mention it much in your pitch, but you've mentioned it in previous conversations about doing the whole Sin City thing where one colour is distinct
Popping out, yeah.
and everything else is in black and white. Is that still an idea that you want to do? Or are you just going full black and white?
For the fake arm, I'd like it to be painted like I have red fingernails, because that's a very vibrant colour, and especially in black and white.
So,
Yeah, so it is going to pop out.
so my recommendation would be then, if that's what you want to do, I would shoot in normal colour and do everything in post. It would just be much easier. It's easier to extract colours afterwards than it is to add them back in.
You also need to think about timing, like in post-production, for that technique to be working efficiently.
Yeah.
But, and also, that can't be the only moment that colours popped out. It can't only be the fingernails. It needs to be more consistent.
Yeah.
So obviously, you know, when the blood splatters, and because otherwise it's just that one moment, and that's pointless. So you either go for it or you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. My last point is that your contingencies aren't contingencies. They need to be more solid.
It's just points.
They're very loose, yeah. So if our acts don't turn up, we might have to use other people. Well, that's obvious. You're going to be using other people. So your contingency needs to be a lot stronger in terms of what the backup plans actually are.
If we don't have an actor, it's most likely going to be either myself. It's most likely going to be me if it's the detective or the murderer that doesn't arrive.
as producer, it needs to be, if Ash doesn't turn up, it's going to be X, Y and Z and they
Yeah.
are available.
You need to
Yeah?
have some clear definitions.
And are the locations secure?
Not yet. We've been trying, but most places have been saying no. Calling estate agents, Airbnb, hotels. Most people have been saying no.
So you might need to start thinking about your own
Mhm.
houses. Okay. I know sometimes parents aren't okay with that, but you're just going to have to see what you can do.
Because I know in your mindset you want this high flyer detective person in Kells, but if we're now trying to suggest thinking about what type of person he is, maybe his personality traits can just change and
Yeah.
he could have a really nice house but he lives somewhere else, or you know